Hey, welcome back to Brian Breaks Character. Now, I've been holding back on introducing you to this guest because we weren't allowed to talk about it. Chelsea Gonzalez is a filmmaker, and she was recently named a Blumhouse Fellow. So this is an inaugural program by Blumhouse, production company, uh, to incubate filmmakers. And Chelsea is an actress and a filmmaker in her own right, but Deadline just came out with that article, so we can finally talk about it and share this with you. One of the great things that you'll hear in this conversation is that Blumhouse kind of whisked them all these fellows off to Sundance, and Chelsea gives us a backstage pass into what it's like to be at Sundance Film Festival. Not only the who, what, where, and how, but what she did to build connection and how important and vital it has been to the rest of her career and how it's beginning to really percolate. And so she teaches us kind of this masterclass that I think you could bring to any film festival you ever go to or any networking event, whether you are a filmmaker or not. I want to tell you a little bit more about her before we jump in because I'm just so proud of her. So she was named the most powerful voice by Blackbird Film Festival for her very first short film called Suzanne and the Man. And that title really defines the work that she creates, Suzanne and the Man. She recently won Best Pilot at Chinese Theater's Dances with Films for her series, Legit Married. And Chelsea's films have been an official selection at over 100 film festivals, including Sarasota, Dead Center, and Holly Shorts. Before she found a love of writing and directing, Chelsea began her career as an actress in a Blumhouse feature, Ouija, Origin of Evil, and in Franca Potente's Home. Now, you might know Franca because Franca is actually the actress who played Lola in Run, Lola, Run. You've also seen Chelsea on a bunch of television shows, but what I love about Chelsea and what Chelsea keeps coming back to again and again as a filmmaker and as a creator is work that takes a hard look at the darkest parts of ourselves and our society while still cultivating light and laughter and heart. I can't wait for you to meet her, and especially for those of you who are trying to create something and put it in the world or concerned about how to network, or if you just want a backstage pass to Sundance, this conversation is going to light you up. Before we get to it, can I ask you a huge favor? Would you mind sending this episode out or just sharing my podcast with 3 of your friends? We've been working really hard to put out valuable content to support actors and writers, directors, filmmakers, and all kinds of creators. And I just want to make sure it gets in the hands of the right people, the people that need it the most. So grab the link on this episode or of the podcast, text it to 3 friends, or you can just click the share button where you're listening to this podcast and send it that way, whatever works for you. No matter what, I would be forever grateful. All right. I just want to put that out there. All right. Let's get to this conversation with Chelsea. Well, I'm so happy to welcome to the show, Chelsea Gonzalez. So glad that you're here.
Hello. Thank you, Brian. Happy to be here.
So glad. So I've known Chelsea for quite a while, but I want to start in right with the most exciting thing that most recently happened is you just got back from Sundance.
I did a couple days ago. Yeah.
I know. I want to hear all about it, and I want to hear how it came to be that you were going. It was your first time being there, and I think for a lot of our listeners, many of them have been there. Many of them have never been there, would never think of the occasion, why they would attend. So I would really love for you to walk us through just like what it was like and how it came to be that you were there and the whole story. Will you get us started? And I'll interrupt you, and I want to get more juicy details.
Totally. Absolutely. So I've been to many a film festival in my life, but I have never been to Sundance Film Festival. And I've always wanted to go because film festivals, some people love them, some people hate them. I love them and always have, but I've always kind of promised myself that I was like, I really want to go to Sundance when I have a reason to go to Sundance. That's just like whatever the thing that I decided for myself. And so, I guess last year, at the end of last year, 2022, I had applied for the Sundance writing lab. Like they do these feature writing labs, they do episodic labs, all that stuff. So I applied to the writing lab. I found out that I was in the second round. And I was like, oh God, I really want to get it. And then the woman who runs that program reached out to me and she was like, we think your script is great. We're really excited about this project, but there's this other company doing a new lab. It's Blumhouse is doing like a horror writers lab. And because my film is like a horror comedy, she was like, could I refer you to them? And we would love to have you submit through these people. And so I was like, yeah, definitely. So I submitted to the Blumhouse lab. I found out I was a finalist in December and then did an interview with them and everything. And then I found out at the end of the year that I got in. So I was so excited.
And this is a big deal. We can't run by that because that is a huge, big deal. Because Chelsea, you've been working on the script for a while, and to have it recognized by Blum, like the biggest horror film, like artful horror film producer that I couldn't name another one for you if you tried to get me to do that, right? Like that is incredible. That must feel really great to know that.
I mean, just like so excited. Yeah. I mean, and it's just a dream. I mean, we can talk more about Blumhouse I've had a big journey with Blumhouse.
Got it.
But yeah, it was just like truly a dream come true. And it's the first year of this program. So it's like the inaugural year. There's 8 scripts chosen. And then one of the perks of the program is we have a writer's lab in March, which is like the main part of this whole thing. But in January, they flew us all to Sundance to be there for the festival.
Got it. And so for the initiated and the uninitiated, what was it like to be at Sundance? Can you tell me the highs and the lows, like some highlights and maybe some things like, oh, this was confusing, or like, tell me all about it. Maybe nothing was confusing. Maybe it was all just awesome sauce the whole time. It was like being at Disneyland. I don't know. You tell me.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yes, Disneyland, and also very overwhelming at the same time. I mean, I feel like, as I said before, I've been to so many festivals, and most festivals, because I've been to a lot of smaller ones, like you're really with either maybe people from the town if it's in another state, or it's just the filmmakers there. But Sundance is like everyone, there's just people who are just there because they want to see films, or they just, or they're trying to network, or like just the scope of the number of people that were there was just through the roof to me.
Yeah.
Like,
and this is the first,
insane.
and also this is the first one they've had since the pandemic. This is how many years they've taken off? 2 or 3, I think they've taken
like 3 years off. Or no, I guess they did. Yeah. 2 years off. 2 years off.
Right.
So the pandemic happened like right after in 2020.
Got it. Great. So maybe even the numbers were even more swollen than they were before this. I wonder, was it always crowded everywhere you went?
Everywhere you go. And it took me a couple days because I was there for 5 days. And I would say the first 2 days, it took me a second to figure out the system, because there is a system.
Oh, can you tell us what the system is so we all get to cheat it?
Yeah,
what's the system?
Totally. Absolutely. Okay. So there's the main strip. It's called Maine. And so that was for even the beginning, everyone's like, oh, I'm going to go to Maine, or I'll meet you at Maine, or are you at Maine? And I was like, what the hell is Maine? And then finally someone was like, oh, it's just Main Street. I was like, oh, okay. Oh. And so there's like Maine, and then there's HQ, which is the headquarters, which is at the Sheraton Hotel, which is like where they sell the merchandise and all that. Pro tip, the merchandise sells out on like day 1. So you have to get there.
Oh man, I want a shirt. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think you can order them online as well.
I'm sure.
But I got there on the festival started on Thursday. I got there on Friday to get the merchandise, and it was like, I got like extra.
Okay, got it.
But yeah. Anyway, so that was the thing. And then there's all these lounges, which I didn't realize because it's so cold. There's all these places where you can go. And there's like, like the Chase lounge where you have to have a Chase card. And then there's the White Claw lounge. And then there's the like filmmaker.
The White Claw lounge where you have to want to get drunk. Is that the rule for that one?
Where you have to prove that you will drink 3 White Claws in.
Right. Okay.
No, but that was the thing, is I was like, I saw the lines to get into these places, and I was like, oh, well, I wouldn't be on the list for the White Claw lounge. I can't get in. And then I found out the woman was like, oh, if you have a Sundance Institute account, you're on the list and you can just get
Got
it.
it.
I was like, well, that would have been helpful 2 days ago when I was like trying to get out of the cold,
Got it.
Stuff like that I just.
And so are you seeing films all day long? Like, are you going in to film at like 10 a.m. in the morning, or is it like a all day film thing for you? Or is it like, walk us through it just a little bit. Especially, just so you know, I've only been to a film festival where I've gone to seek out a specific film. I've never gone to another city to go to a film festival. So you have a different breadth of experience than even I do. So I may be the biggest novice listening to you right now. Just want to say that.
Totally. No, not at all. Yeah. So for me with this particular program, they reserved all of our screenings for us. So we saw about 2 films a day. But because it's a Blumhouse lab, they're really capitalizing on the horror thing. So we saw a lot of midnight screenings. So I was up till like 3 a.m. every night. I was tired.
Got it.
But then during the day, or, like the midnight screening is so late. So I had like loads of time in between.
Right.
Parties and events and meet up with people. And I think what happens is, what I'm starting to get is like everyone. Okay. This is why I love film festivals, and this is why I love Sundance, because everyone
lean in, quit multitasking and listen, because Chelsea's going to tell you this is the tea.
Listen.
Yes.
This is the tea.
Yes.
But everyone is there to network, and that is why I personally love networking quote unquote events because it's so easy to talk to people because everyone just wants someone to talk to and everyone just wants to get another email address. And like, to me, when you're not at a networking event, it's harder to just kind of meet someone and like, oh, can I get your info? You know, it feels stupid. But when you're at something like Sundance, it's like, everyone's in on it.
It's like being at speed dating. Like we're at everyone's speed dating here. Everyone is trying to is being there to meet people, essentially. Yes.
And so, you know, I had like a good number of friends, like, or even acquaintances that I saw like on Instagram that they were there. And I was like, Instagram messaged them like, oh my God, are you at Sundance? Like, are you on Main? The street. Right. And they're like, yeah, oh, I'm in the whatever lounge. Like, come meet me. And then, you know, you'll go over with them. And then there's like a bunch of people that they're with. And then you just meet. Right. It just makes it so easy to just meet anyone.
Yeah, I love what you say there, Chelsea, because I think we talk about networking on this podcast a lot, and the different vibe in that room is I'm here to meet people and say hello people, and trading email addresses is normal. And normally we're in a room where like, maybe this is normal. We have to like check the vibe or whatever. So I love that there's a buy-in that like, why else are you here? In some ways. I mean, I'm sure there's people there just to see movies, but typically hanging out in these lounges is probably not those people. It's the people who are there to like do this. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are some of the highlights that you can give me in terms of being there for you personally?
Okay, well, I'll tell you, I'm actually really excited to tell you this because this was a huge moment and I truly cried about it when I came back the next day. I was really thinking about this and I was like, this was my favorite part of Sundance. So because for the Blumhouse Fellowship, they had like a cocktail party that was for us. It was like like announcing the Blumhouse Fellows, you know, whatever. And so they curated the guest list for that. And so that was exclusive.
I love it. You didn't just have to have a chase card.
yeah, you just have to have
a chase card.
No, just a chase card. But this was like, it was like just, you know, I mean, it wasn't even a huge party. There were like maybe 50 people there or something.
Right. Which also can be good because then you get to meet everybody. I feel like that can sometimes be a good vibe because you don't,
Absolutely. And it was just like very chill. Like they had, you know, free drinks. So people were just kind of like getting a drink, getting some guacamole. It was like a Mexican restaurant. And anyway, so I started chatting with these 3 producers that are like indie film producers, but they've done really cool stuff and just instantly really connected with them. Like I just felt like, oh, these are really cool people. They're definitely more successful than I am at this point in my, like, you know, they've done a lot more than I have, but I just instantly felt like, ooh, I dig these people. They're easy to talk to. We really got along. So I exchanged emails with them. And then the next day, one of them said like, hey, we're having, and these 3 people were all staying in an Airbnb together. And they're like, hey, we're actually having a party at our house tonight. If you're free, we would really love for you to stop by. We thought you were really great, you know, whatever. And so I was like, definitely. So I went to this party and it was really fun. I was chatting with people, but then they broke out the biggest, wildest game of charades. It's called running charades. And it was like 3 teams and you're running up and down the stairs. I mean, it's the whole ordeal how they play it. But I had a moment where like, it was just so fun. And I was just with such cool, great people. And as I started to talk to the people on my team more, I was like, oh my God, this guy's the head programmer at Sundance. This girl has produced all these huge movies. Like this guy was on this show in the 90s for like 10 years. Like it was just all these people that I was like, oh, these are people I've just wanted to, you know, would love to be in the company of. And here I am just playing a very easy, chill, fun game of charades. And it's stupid and we're all terrible at it or whatever. And it was just felt like I found my people and I don't even need to network because it's just happening.
And I love what you said because, you know, games I think are a great equalizer. Like we're all playing the game. It's like you're playing football and one's the quarterback and this is like, it's like, we're just all playing a game and some people are good at this part. And like you said, we're all horrible at it. I love that like made you have that. And you said this was the moment that stayed with you. It sounds like you said when you're in the airplane.
It really is. Like, I'm sure like in 10 years, when I think back on like my first Sundance experience, I'll be like, that charades game, man.
Oh, that's great. I feel like next time you go to Sundance, you need to run an Airbnb and have a charades game and invite people. Like that needs to be.
Oh my God. I love it. Yes,
that's the vibe. Yeah, totally.
Definitely.
So, anything else we need to share about? I want to move on, but I don't move on. There's anything else we need to say about Sundance? Anything else you need to say? What about the person who's like, hey, now that you've gone because you had a reason, would you ever say back to your younger self, you know, a year earlier, hey, you don't need to wait for a reason? Or would you say, yes, it's only worth going with a reason?
I would say that it's definitely worth going even without a reason, for sure. I do think like full disclosure, I feel lucky that I had a reason. That is nice. But I met so many people who were there just to be there. And I think my advice would be if someone just wants to go just to experience it, I would just be really open to like, I might have a couple awkward moments where like, I don't know what party to get to, or I don't have an invite somewhere, and it's okay. I'm just going to like walk on the street. I'm going to like check things out. I'm going to see who I meet. And I think it's just very like, you really have to just see how it goes. I got the impression that it was really hard to plan Sundance. Like,
got it.
You know, like, go to as many screenings as you can, of course, but apart from the screenings, it's just like, I think the parties and all the stuff where people really want to meet people, it just kind of happens if you let it, you know?
Great. That's really great advice, I think, Chelsea.
Help?
Yeah, I think totally,
Yeah.
because it says like, you don't need to be a beginner when you go to Sundance for your first time. Like go as a beginner and embrace your beginnerness of like not knowing where to go, where to be, like just like go for it and follow the waves of who you meet or whatever. And, you know, the advice that I always share is, you know, whoever you're sitting next to is the person you're supposed to meet. So whoever is next to you in the theater, or you're on the shuttle from one place to another, like start talking to them, because that's going to be the right person to connect with, and good things will happen. So that's great. Cause like, I would be like, I don't think I should go. Why would I go? Like, this is a great reason to go. I love it. Beautiful. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the work we've done together, because it's been a journey for you to become a Blumhouse fellow. And when we first started working together, and we're just kind of using our work together as a timeline to kind of tell the story today also. When we first started working together, you were acting and writing, and it was a big shift to say, maybe I want to say yes more to filmmaking than to acting. Can you take us back to that time a little bit of like, what was, you know, I guess it was how many years ago now? 5?
Oh my gosh, it's been a while, Brian.
Yeah.
I think maybe 5.
Yeah, I think maybe 5.
You said I was acting and writing. I think I was acting and like quote unquote writing. Like, I think I was like, maybe I'll try writing. I don't know that I even had fully gone into that yet. You know?
It. Yeah.
Like, I think I definitely chose to work with you because I was like, you work with actors and you help actors' careers, and that's what I care about, and I want to be an actor. Like, I would say that was the focus at the
start
time.
of it was like, I need to act. Yeah. And it was really quick though that we discovered there was something else on the stove though, I feel like.
Yeah, I do think so. I think I might have just made my first short, which again was something that I just wanted to do to give myself an acting opportunity at the time. And then was just kind of like, oh, but I'm finding this other thing that I love as well. Let's explore that. And I think I was just kind of teetering on that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that first was Suzanne and the Man. Just so anybody who's referencing or wants to go look at Chelsea's materials online or look at your website, it's chelseagonzalez.com. Is that right?
Yep.
Right. Yeah. It's spelled exactly the way that you would think it's spelled. And so coming off of that film, what made you start to, because I think a lot of people listening who are listening to this podcast are challenged by the idea of having more than one passion, challenged by the idea of, if I say yes to filmmaking, I'm saying no to acting. If I say yes to acting, I can't say yes to having like my yoga business, or like that. It's not okay for me to love more than one thing. Can you walk us back to what gave you more assurance to say yes to film, or like say yes to putting energy, time, money in that area?
Definitely. I mean, I have to be honest though, for me, is it came from me being in not a great place emotionally with acting. I was really struggling for a second there. Like, I really was like, had booked some cool little co-stars on television or, you know, stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And then I had this moment where it was like, nothing's happening. And to me, it wasn't like, ooh, acting's so great, and I want to add this other thing. I was kind of like, I'm actually not super happy right now, and I need to figure out something else. And the thing that you told me that I will never forget, that I think was the biggest key for everything, was I
don't even know what this is. I can't wait.
What's it gonna be? But I think you were probably reading that I wasn't in a great headspace fully with it all. And you were like, can you just make acting? And I mean, you've probably said this to people before, but can you make acting a hobby? Can acting just be a hobby right now?
I remember.
Do you remember this at all?
Yeah. And this is when I lived in Los Feliz, and we used to get to meet in person too, I think. Yes?
Yeah. Exactly. We were in your Los Feliz apartment. Yes. It was one of those things that I was like, ugh, but acting isn't a hobby. Acting's like all I've ever cared about, you know?
Yeah.
But then I kind of like thought about it more. And I think if I were to reanalyze what you were trying to do at that moment, it was probably to take the pressure off. Like, let's enjoy this again. Let's find the fun in it again, because I certainly was not having fun with acting at that time. And I think allowing it to be a hobby kind of like let me release maybe the tight grip I was having on it. And then I think slowly I started to be like, okay, so if this is a hobby, like I'm also really enjoying writing and that's kind of a hobby. And I kind of have been really curious about directing. Like, I think it just snowballed. And to me, it's always that moment that led to everything else, was that when I just decided to let acting be a hobby.
Yeah, that's really wild you say that, Chelsea, because I remember it. I forgot until you said it again. But what I'm taking away is you're saying this back to me. Here's what I'm hearing. What you're hearing is when I was gripping acting, I didn't have the distance from it to both see what space it had in my life and to like play. Like it was not fun. So by making it into a hobby again, I wasn't able to look at it because I was gripping it so hard, in fact, is what I'm here, which is a really weird way to think that's not intuitive at all. That feels totally counterintuitive, that like the only thing I'm looking at, of course I'm seeing it, right? But in fact, you lost sight of it. And so then the other hobbies got to like rear their heads and say, well, how about me? And how about me? And then it started to, I wouldn't say that in my experience of you, it didn't take over. You like said yes to it. I didn't think writing took over. Writing doesn't take over. It's too much work for writing to take over. I feel like you have to say yes to it over and over and over again, right? But you kept stepping toward it. And when you were stepping toward it, you know, sometimes we have validation from outside, like I got into a bunch of film festivals or people are saying that I'm good. This is kind of the same question. I'm going to ask it again, though, is like, what reassured you that, hey, yeah, I want to keep doing this? Was it a feeling inside? Was it a feeling of like doing it and being so happy with the result? What came back to you to say, I'm looking for the cycle that said that I'm going to keep doing this? Was it just a feeling inside? Talk to me.
I think there was something, I think to me, finishing a film gives me such a sense of accomplishment, which maybe is an outside exterior feeling, but to have like this idea of having, and you know, my films are all short films at this point. I'll make a feature one day, but you know, I'm like, this wasn't anything. And now it's a 15-minute movie. Like this didn't exist until I made it. I don't know if I'm answering your question at all.
No, but I think go, I'm gonna shut up.
No. I think that just gave me like the fulfillment to keep going and to want to keep exploring it and to, yeah. Well,
what I'm hearing you say is the process of creation was different for me as a filmmaker. Like I got to have an idea, make it, and then it existed, which for an actor is probably different, not bad, a different kind of creativity that I get to go do my thing on that day and contribute in my way. And they call wrap and I leave and I'm done. Like, so there's a different energy that comes from that. Cause you don't let's all be very clear. Chelsea belongs in all the films she ever makes if she wants to be in them. Right. And so, and acting is not something you've walked away from at all, I would say. Would you?
No.
Yeah. Right. And it also does not, you tell me, does it feel primary right now?
I would say it doesn't feel primary right now. Yeah.
And when you say that, there are people who are like, you know, shitting their pants because they're like, then how can it even exist? Like acting there's no way to have an acting career unless it's the only thing you are obsessed with, right? Can you talk about that? I don't even know if it brings any fear up for you when even you said that out loud. What are your feelings around just the fact that acting isn't primary right now? Do you have any feelings there?
Oh, I mean, I have feelings. I have so many feelings around it. I have to talk to myself about it constantly because I still love acting so much and it's so important to me, but I just have to let myself, like, I think the thing that has been really helpful for myself is to say, I'm never going to lose acting. It's always going to be part of me. And you know what? This is taking the front seat right now, you know, but acting's always going to be there. Just as if you have a sick parent, you're like, this sick parent is going to take the front seat right now, but acting's always there. You know, to me, it's the same. It's like, I'm working on, you know, writing and directing a lot right now. And I have to just like, let myself go there because my life is pulling me in that direction. Yeah. But I still have representation for acting. Right. Like acting is always there for me and I have not dropped it. It's still there. Right. Yeah. It's never going to go anywhere.
I think that's so beautiful. I think that's it's so beautiful because I talked about that. Like if you put more hours in, you think you lost it or something. But let's all just remember there's only 24 hours in the day. You really couldn't be doing all of the things all of the time. And so I love that you're like, and so I'm just relating to it. Like, here's the thing that's in front of me right now. Acting is always there. It's not going to be abandoned, right? I think a lot of times because of acting careers, feel like you have to always be chasing it. If you're not in the chase, it feels like you're not in it. And so I think it's important exactly because Chelsea, I don't know if I love the word chase, but Chelsea's chasing her film stuff right now. The energy is going a little bit more there because that's where things are coming up. And like the Blumhouse fellowship writing thing is coming up in March. We're not going to be like, and now I'm going to book a feature film shooting in Bulgaria in March. No, actually we've got a really great thing going on in March that I'm really excited about. So I want to take us back to when you started to the beginning of this hobby and then saying yes to film, part of what we did together, I think, was when we started to, I don't know if you saw this as a big moment, but it felt big to me, which is when we started to even just change the messaging that was on your website. Do you remember this?
I mean, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Was that for you? So here's why I think websites are particularly affecting emotionally, because it's like a public, like, here's my signpost out in the world that says who I am. Whether or not a million people are visiting it a day is a different story, but we have this feeling of here's my signpost. So when we like reworked your website, right? So it really embraced the filmmaker. What was that like for you? Like, tell me a little bit about that journey, I guess.
I mean, I think you definitely had to talk me off the ledge a couple of times about it, because I was like, oh, I've had websites in the past that are just like my actor website. But I think there was something really empowering in choosing that this was how I wanted to represent myself. That was really, it was kind of like me taking control of my career again, and like, this is the direction I'm going right now. And it wasn't even that crazy. Like, I still have a page for my actor self.
Correct.
There's not all that much that needs to go on there. I got my reel, my resume,
Yeah.
And so then I have like, mainly I was really excited to showcase my films. And so like, to me, like the front page of my website now is like, here's all my films that I made.
Yeah.
And
this,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No. Go. No, I want you to.
This kind of coalesced in a job that you got, if you can share a little bit about it, where you ended up being pretty close and sharing your own story with the director. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that story, that film that you booked with Franca?
Oh.
I'm like, I'll whisper the name and then you'll know right away. Right.
Well, that one, yeah. So I did this. It was totally an independent movie with a director named Franca Potente, who is the title character in Run Lola Run. Great indie film. Yeah. But it was starring Kathy Bates, so I knew that I was excited about Kathy Bates being in it. But I. Yeah. Okay. So I actually booked that just from a self-tape. I booked the role. It was like a small, it was like 2 scenes, but like such an exciting movie for me to be a part of.
And also like a grungy-ish, interesting character, not just.
Oh my God, dream, a dream. I always play like prissy kind of girls. And this was like, I was playing a
tough Jersey girl almost, chick. Right? Yeah, totally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So fun. I loved it. And and Franca, it was an indie film. So she was putting it was her first feature. She's an actress, and she was putting a lot of effort into it. And so she wanted to meet with me beforehand to like, just talk about the character. So we had lunch.
Wait, that's so cool. Everyone just like, that is so cool. Everyone just to notice, because everyone like off of a self-tape, character you don't normally play, and then getting to meet with the director who also is having her first feature and you're the actor, and that's pretty cool. Like kismet, all the things. Okay, so go ahead. Passing the mic back.
You're so right. And I will say, just now that you're saying that, I also, because I was so focused on the other stuff, I had this self-tape and I was in pre-production and I didn't care. I shot it in one take with my friend who came over and like sent it in immediately and didn't give it another thought. And then when I found out I booked it, I was like, what even was it? Like, it's just so funny when you're not putting so much pressure on it,
Yes, totally. I love it. Yeah. Wait, just so everyone's caught up to date, I want to catch everybody up to date, because what Chelsea's alluding to is when she started to embrace this filmmaker part of herself, she put herself out there through, I think we had you put yourself out through Facebook, right? And you got some work from even, and I know Facebook may feel like, what's Facebook anymore? But just by putting out through Facebook, more people knew that you were doing it. For a minute, you were coaching some people around, helping them with their own films. And that, I think, was another place where you were just showing up, because all of these might seem small actions were, I think, we had to think about them and how you're going to word it and how you're going to feel good about saying it out loud, of claiming the space. I'm a filmmaker now. And then suddenly opportunities just kept coming your way. So while you were booking this film, you were getting a directing job, or someone was interested in meeting with you. And so you were showing up in what I want everyone to just hear, that like, it wasn't like suddenly the Wizard of Oz came and say, you are now a director and a filmmaker, and here's all these opportunities. Chelsea on her own terms was putting herself out there through, again, Facebook, nothing fancy there about Facebook, right? And then saying to people close to her, hey, I'm helping, I think it was, women filmmakers, or presenting women filmmakers all find film festivals and how to make it work. And like, just kind of putting that word out there so that people knew that. And these are two things that anybody could do. I just want to make sure there wasn't like some magic that only Chelsea had. Certainly working through the emotions of putting yourself out there or something. But, I just want to embrace that, to say that it wasn't because some special thing happened. You decided to show, which I think is a real testament to your willingness to be seen, right? So, okay, take you back to the set.
Oh yeah. So, oh no. Okay. I met with Franco beforehand to talk
Right.
about the character. And then, I was like, should I hide the fact that I'm also a filmmaker? But then we just got into it. And I was like, I direct too. And she was like, you direct? Oh my God. We had like a 3-hour lunch, which I'm sure would have been like a 30-minute situation, if we hadn't gotten into it. But she was just so great. She just got so excited about the fact that I was also a filmmaker. I hadn't made a feature yet. She's making her first feature. So then when I got on set to shoot, we had there were sections where they were like, oh, let's take you back to the trailer. You have like 4 hours to kill. And I was like, oh, well, can I just actually stay on set? Like, I wouldn't mind just kind of like chilling here as opposed to going back to the trailer. And then Franco was like, Chelsea, wait, come here. And like, literally, I just ended up shadowing her on this film that I was also in. And it was just so incredible because she was like, oh, see, here's what I'm doing at the frame. And I think I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And she's like, does this look good? And I was like, I don't know. I feel like you might want to move the coffee cup there. It felt like, oh, I'm an actor. I'm here as an actor, but I'm also just connecting with the whole crew and the director in such a different way because I let her in on the fact that I also am a filmmaker as opposed to hiding it, which I originally was going to do.
Yeah. I also think that when you were saying this, I was just relating to like, if you're a filmmaker and Brad Pitt is in your film, I'm going to imagine that Brad Pitt might sit back with you once in a while you're there and you're the director and like, you're talking about how's it going and what's it look like. Like that is the experience that I have to imagine is happening when you're at a level like that. If you choose to be generous, if you're Brad Pitt, I guess in this case, because maybe the filmmaker isn't even as famous as you, right? But like, this is the kind of conversation that an actor who is interested in filmmaking is going to be having, and that you were having at this time, I think was really, really special, especially. Right. So
it was,
and you booked this acting job, and then what would you say is the next, like, I don't know, tipping point or like touchstone that you think of even in your filmmaking career? Was it making your next short? Was it writing more? What was the next thing that landed for you big time?
I wrote a short film that was really simple and it was just 2 people and I really wanted to direct it. And I wrote the role I could easily have played the role. And I just was like, oh, man, I really want to direct this, but also I don't want to, I want to like be on the monitor all day watching. I don't really want to be in front of the camera, but should I, because I'm an actor, I should want to put myself in it, and just making the decision to not act in it and to just direct it, I think was really huge for me. And I even like my parents who always see me as an actor, they're like, oh, but you're not in it. Oh, aren't you sad? And I was like, wow, I'm just not like, I feel so proud of that film, or like, it has this issues that it has, but I'm just so happy that I directed it and didn't act in it. And I think that was a big thing for me because I always thought if I make my own film and I don't put myself in it, I'm going to be like so upset. Like, why didn't I give myself a part in it? That kind of thing. Yeah. But that's what cemented that I love directing, was that I could like make a film, not be in it, and still feel so much ownership over it, so proud of it, and not even wish like, oh, if only I were in it, Right.
I love that. And I would love, one thing I want everyone to just hear is you would never have gotten that lesson if you hadn't done it. There was some guts in, I'm sure, even like the day even the day you were going to set, I know you're feeling pretty, by then were you feeling really clear? When did you know like, oh, I made the right decision? Was it right away?
I would say it was at the end of the day. Yeah. At the end of the shoot day, I was like so on a high. I was like, oh my God, cause that was my first time directing. PS.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, directing's so amazing. And then I was like, wow, I actually am not upset that I wasn't in it. It just was, it really dawned on me in that moment.
And just everyone just to notice, like you would never have learned that without taking the action of just saying yes to not having yourself be in it. Right. And so a lot of times I think we can think ourselves into paralysis, but action is always going to teach us more. So you could have had the exact opposite experience. You could have done it, directed, and been like, and I really wish that was me all day. All day long, I was watching her, wishing it was me, and I didn't like that. And that you could be like, great. And now you've learned, and never again. But by saying,
and that's information.
Yeah.
That's helpful to know.
Yeah.
But you can only know if you try it.
If you try it. Yeah. And if you are willing to like try something new, I think that, I always steal this from recovery. I'm not in recovery, but I steal this from recovery, which is your own best thinking got you here. And so you have to like try some different thinking on sometimes. That's like, okay, I'm going to try this not me being in it thing and see how it goes. Or like, you knew that it was going to be too hard to be in both places at once. I thought that was pretty awesome. Right. So then Blumhouse, I know we're a little further away from Blumhouse still. We're a little further away, but then you went through these years of like writing and networking and trying to get your script in front of people. Can you just walk through that? Because I think a lot of people who are listening might be like, I'm in the writing phase, or like, I'm trying to write, or I haven't gotten it done. Like, talk us through, because we had a lot of wrestling with writing. It was
Oh my
like,
God. Yeah.
yeah,
So much. I mean, writing is just so hard. And I can say I love writing and I love having a script done, but it's so hard. Like every writer just says how hard it is. Because you're creating something from nothing and it's just real difficult.
yeah.
But I,
What are some things you know about yourself? What are some things you know about yourself as a writer now? Or no, not
okay.
that, can I ask you a different way? What would you tell
Yeah.
yourself then that you know now? Some advice you might give yourself then.
I think there's times where you/I felt really stuck in a script or an idea, or I didn't know how to tell the story, or it felt like things weren't really happening with my career, or things were slow. And I just wish at those times that I would have just said, you know what, my career might be slow right now, but I can still just buckle down and work on this script because it's so worth it once it's done. You just have to like you have to write the things before any of the other things can happen. It has to be written. And I think there's just been so many times where I'd like get kind of down with myself and be like, ugh, why am I even writing? Like, this isn't going anywhere. And I wish I could just go back to myself and be like, just put your head down and write because it's going to make a huge difference once you get the script done, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to make sure everyone gets that because I remember those moments. It would be like, I'm only writing. There's not any auditions coming. There's nothing, it feels like there's nothing happening. There's no like on the horizon, this next thing I'm going to direct, or I'm not having like nothing. I'm on my own. It feels like I'm on my own right now. And I feel like this is a little bit like a nurturing, like nutrition. I say nutrition, like I'm missing a little bit of the vitamin C validation that I'm in this business right now, other than me sitting by myself writing. Right. And so it can feel a little lonely and feel a little like, well, what am I doing anyway? And the questions come up. So this advice is hard to swallow, I think, but it's like, just put your nose down, keep writing. When the writing is done, it's going to be different. It's going to be different. I think it's also a time, and I don't know about you, but you also had a writing group that helped you to stay accountable at times. So it doesn't have to be something you're accountable to just yourself. We're not saying just keep your head down and be alone. It might mean some accountability, but I think that's an important point to make. Yeah. What else would you tell yourself? Something. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Oh man. So many things. I also think like letting it be bad is really important. Really important. Because I just feel like sometimes, you know, you're writing and you know it's bad. You know the dialogue's bad. You don't know where you're going with the story. And then I usually stop because I'm like, this is terrible. What am I doing? This is horrible. But I think like sometimes I've written really terrible drafts of things and then had a realization when I got to the end and been like, that's what the movie needs to be about. And then I start over and then it's so much better. But you kind of have to let it be bad for a little bit.
Got it. Yeah. And so let me see if I'm really saying this because I think this is a little bit when I get into writing. It's like if I'm editing while I'm writing, sometimes I suck. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like I'm not going back, I'm just going forward. Are you sometimes just going forward? And this is really getting into writing technique right now. But are you often like, I'm just going to keep going forward. I'm not going to go back and fix. Is that a little bit of what you're?
Totally.
Yeah.
Because, you know, yeah. And like that whole phrase, I don't know if you've heard this before, but it's write drunk, edit sober. Sometimes can be really helpful.
Got it. I think even the mindset of that is helpful. Even the mindset, whether or not you're actually going to be
alcohol involved. Yeah. But just like let it just like come out of you and be messy and who cares? And then, you know, like quote unquote sober up and like, you know, fix it later.
Right. But I like it. Wait, I love that because I've never heard that before. I think I heard it a different way, but I like the way you said, because what I'm taking away from Write Drunk is let down your inhibitions, be free. That first idea that comes to you could be the best one. Like, just like, that's what I'm taking away from this idea of drunk. Like there's something about drunk that makes you feel like in your body a little bit more than when you're like in your head a little bit, right? Like, oh, I feel like maybe they're going to do this now. Like, it's just a little bit more spontaneous. And that's a great phrase to Steph. I'm sure everyone else is like, Brian, yeah, I heard that phrase 10 years ago. I'm just having my first realization here live on the mic for you. Right. And then anything else you would want to say?
I do think finding people and groups, and it's taken me a while. You know, I've been in Alexa Alamani's class. I know you kind of have referred people to her in the past, but
and give it its full due. It's called what's it called? Say the full name.
Yeah. Bad Pitch Writers Lab. And I think it's just badpitchwriterslab.com.
I think you're right.
But Alexa's a fantastic teacher. She's actually the only writing class I've ever taken. So I feel like I've learned what I need to know from, you know, she's just so good about like, she doesn't tell you how to do it. She just gives you like the basic tools and then you figure out how to do it, which is great.
Great. Yeah.
So I have to give credit where credit is due for sure. But then otherwise, it's just been a lot of trial and error. Like I've done the whole, you know what, I need to just do an hour every morning. And I've done that for a while. But I've actually found for me, that works for a lot of people. For me, what works better is it takes me a while to get into it. So I'd rather do less days of the week, but do like 4 or 5 hour chunks. So it's like, maybe I don't write Monday and Tuesday, but on Wednesday, I'm writing like much of the day, as opposed to like the hour in the morning for me, just it takes me an hour to get into it. And then I'm like, well, the hour's over.
Yes. So what you're saying is so interesting because we talked about this on the podcast and this was part of our Make It Real series. If anybody wants to go back to the episodes at the beginning of 2023, which is having your own rebel process, which is like, to me, it feels rebellious a little bit, even though it's not really, it's just honoring what's true about you, but it can feel rebellious when you've heard this is how to do it, to be like, the way that works for me is if I have 4 hours, I'm a much better writer than my hour where like I got 4 lines out, like as opposed to my 4 hours, I get like 5 pages done because I'm so in it and like I have to ramp up. Right. So that's a really important, I think, learning because listen, every coach in the world is making it up, taking it off of what their client is giving it to them and what's happening for them. And by trying, which you've really demonstrated by saying like, I went and said, I'm going to do a film without me being the lead in it and see what happens, right? By trying things is where we find out, here's what actually works for ourselves. And what worked for you is those 5 hours. That's a really important thing for everyone to just take away from that. So, and then there's this other part about filmmaking that I'm sure everyone gets challenged by. And we started there when we were talking about networking. There has been a lot of like, how do you network and where do you do with your script? And I think we did some work around this, around reaching out. What would you say is like your biggest learning around reaching out or putting your script out there that you'd want be willing to share?
I gotta tell you, we talked about this before. I did an Instagram post and I was like, hey, I wrote this movie. It's really cool. Like, I'm proud of it. Don't know if I would say it's cool for my client. Yes, I was like, I'm really proud of it.
We worked through how to post this.
Thing made.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
We worked about
I really want to get this made.
Yes. Right. I really want to get this thing made.
And I was like, and yes, and you and I talked about that, and I was like, what do I do now? I feel like I don't have connections. I don't know who to send it to. I don't know how to get it out there. And just posting, like, it's such a simple, stupid thing, but just posting on social media, like, I really want to get this made. It's insane the number of friends who like we're like, oh, you want your script made? Actually, I have this person to send it to, and
Yeah.
And actually, that is how my thing happened. So I posted on Instagram.
Right.
And then a friend of mine was like, hey, a friend of a friend is a independent producer and she likes the idea. She would love to like chat with you about it. I sent her the script. She really liked it. And then I started working independently with this independent producer who didn't have a job at the time. And then, do you think I can name drop the name? I'm not sure if I should say it or not.
Let's not get her in trouble. Maybe you can say the name of the company. Does that feel okay?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's good. So this independent producer ended up getting a job being the vice president of development for Film Nation, which is, if you know Film Nation, they did like Promising Young Woman and Arrival and The Big Sick and all this stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, through this Instagram post, I met, and so I started developing the script with her,
right?
Before the Blumhouse stuff happened. And I was like, it was just crazy that this, like, through an Instagram post, I was connected with this person who didn't even have a job at the time, but I just really liked her vibe. And then she got this huge job. Like, you just never know.
Yeah. And I want everyone to hear this. So everybody quit getting in your own way, because what we believe is I know everyone in my network and I know exactly who they know and who they could talk me to. And I'm going to reach out to my one friend who used to work in TV because maybe they have a friend. You have no idea who does whose nails. You have no idea where they like to go to the gym. You have no idea what company they keep when you're not around. And so the vulnerable piece is letting go of trying to manage the help you receive, because we try to control it. And so the truth is, and I'll just kind of put a fine point on this, Chelsea, because I think you modeled this so well when you were willing to put this post into the world, is modeling, I don't have to decide who's going to respond to this or how they're going to respond. I'm just going to say, I need help. And saying I need help is vulnerable. And part of what we do is we protect ourselves, like I said, by only reaching out to certain people, because it just like mitigates the exposure for rejection or whatever. Because someone, in your imagination, Chelsea, what were you imagining someone might put from that post? Like, who do you think you are? What's your film? Who do you like the people would say, not that someone would say something negative maybe, but like, what were the thoughts inside your head going on?
Well, I will tell you, I did have someone who is a fellow writer say to me, I would never have, he was kind of judging me. Like, he really was.
Of course.
And I didn't feel good after this conversation. And he just was, as a friend, I just have to tell you, I would never post something like that.
Well,
and I felt horrible.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't have posted it, for like 10 minutes. And then all these other people sent me to
Amazing. Yes.
And I was like, okay, you know, I have to let that go
Yes.
because everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. And, you know, what can you do?
And you have to remember also, usually when someone is saying something that pointed, they're seeing something they wish they could do.
Mm-hmm. Or
They're
like,
seeing,
I would never post it. So how could you have done that kind
yes.
of thing? You know?
Yeah. Who do you think you are? Like, you look so unprofessional, right? And then all the good things that came from it is just wild, right? Look where you are now, right? Look where you are now. I'm like, ta-da, right? So, is there anything else that you would want to reflect back on about, you know, I know you're in journey right now where you're like, you're about to do the Blumhouse fellowship thing. This is all happening as we're talking about this and have the real writing session and everything, the workshop, like you said. But is there anything else you'd want to share about the journey so far that you think could be important for someone listening who's either a writer or creator and is, you know, wrestling with all the stuff you wrestled with?
You know, can I tell you something that happened with this whole Blumhouse thing? So, and we haven't talked about this yet in this conversation, but so I was cut from a Blumhouse. I was in a Blumhouse film 7 years ago or whatever, you know about this.
Yes.
And I was cut from it. And it was really devastating for me. And it was called Ouija, Origin of Evil. And it was this like, you know, whatever. It was a prequel to the film Ouija. Anyway, and filming it was just like one of the best experiences of my life. I absolutely loved getting to like and it was my first my only studio feature film, and so exciting. I went to the premiere and I found out I was cut.
By watching on the screen. By watching on the screen
with my manager next to me, my talent manager, who I brought to the premiere. Oh, it was horrible.
This is such a good story for when you're on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, right. And so I was devastated, and it was truly that moment. Like I remember just like walking around downtown LA sobbing for like 4 hours. I was like, I'm cut from this movie. It was really, really, I was really devastated by it. And then, but I always remember it as the moment that I found writing, because that was when I thought I've got to do something else. Like, this isn't working for me. And so I started writing, and then I ended up writing this feature that happens to be a horror film, which isn't normally what I write. But I wrote this horror film, and it's about women who are murdered in films. So that's like what my movie's about. I mean, it's the whole thing. But anyway, and so I got into this Blumhouse program. So I had the meeting. We had a Zoom meeting before we all went to Sundance where we met everyone. And the head marketing woman from Blumhouse was on the Zoom. Brian, I have no idea what's going to happen from here on out. This is like half of a story. But as I introduced myself, I was like, I'm Chelsea, you know, so grateful to be here, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you know, my life really feels like it's come full circle because I was actually cut from a Blumhouse film a couple of years ago. And just to be here as a Blumhouse writer is just, I'm so honored. And, you know, I kind of gave a little thing like that. And then the woman who's the head of marketing was like, I just want to interrupt, like, you know, we are here, like we are taking you guys on as creators and writers and whatever else you want to be. So Chelsea, we got to make this up to you. And that was like the end of the conversation. So the reason I said it's half of a story, because I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen.
No, but something's going to happen.
If I end up getting an acting job from this, I'm going to be super excited.
That's amazing. We got to make this up to you. You should listen, whenever you're not getting what you want, you should be like, listen, I asked for green M&Ms in the workshop room and I don't have them, and you're supposed to be making it up to me.
Well, the only reason I wanted to tell that story was to say, because we've talked about how I've like, you know, acting's on the back burner and da 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 da. But when that happened and she said that, I was like, you know what? Maybe this all will lead back to acting. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, I have no idea what'll happen. Yeah. But it was cool to think like it's okay to, you know, put your eggs in all these different baskets and like see what happens.
Yes. Oh, I love that freedom that you found, and your freedom of like, maybe it'll come back to acting or whatever. I love that. So Chelsea, if there was anything that you would, I mean, I think that you've given like a beautiful piece of advice there, which is like, our unattachment to knowing exactly, that's kind of like the theme of what I think has come up today, is like being unattached to exactly like what it has to look like has given you tremendous freedom. And from that has brought tremendous success. Also because you've let go of the idea of success has to look like booking a guest star, booking a co-star, booking a series regular, and my film has to go to this place or whatever. Like, and I have to be in the film, like continuously through this journey. I just hear you saying like, I let go of it had to be a certain way. And that is when great things have happened for me, which is really cool. And I can just tell everyone, I'm a huge fan of Chelsea Gonzalez. I just want you to know, like, I've known you for 5 years. Your growth has been incredible. It has been incredible to see you grow as a writer, grow as an actress, grow as a person, like owning the platform that you have. Like, no one gets to go onto a set where they're like, you walk down with Franca without having the platform of already having done a film behind you and that you're working on it. Like that is just incredible to see you embrace that. So I'm sure you've inspired a lot of people listening today. If they want to catch up with you or watch what else is going down, where's the best place for them to follow along?
Yeah, I mean, my website's chelseagonzalez.com, Gonzalez with a Z at the end. My Instagram is at Chelsea the Gonzo. And those are probably the best two places.
Great. And we will link to them in the show notes so you can follow along. You might pick up a few followers here, Chelsea, or some big fans, I hope, because we're going to want to see where this all leads to. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for letting me witness the awesomeness of you. Like, it is just fun to be around, and it is a joy to be around. Is there anything else you need to say? So I feel like you get to have the last word today.
No, I want to say, well, thank you for saying that. And I feel like you've always been so great about kind of meeting me halfway wherever I'm at. Like, there's never been a moment where you've been like, oh, really? It feels like you're pulling away from acting, or, it's like whatever I kind of start to give you, you just take it and help me get, like, how do I say this? Like, I was clearly struggling with acting, and you took that and you were like, make it a hobby. Or, I was like, I feel like I want to reach out, or like, I'm looking for this and I don't know. And you're like, great, let's take that and like do this post on Instagram. Like, you've always just taken me where I knew I wanted to go, but given me the extra push to get there. So I'm very appreciative of you for all of that
you,
stuff.
Chelsea. I'll take that. And I'm going to take from that one more thing, because I want everyone to hear it, which is, when you have an obstacle, typically the next answer, not always, that's not saying not typically, oftentimes the answer is take some action, and you're going to learn something from that action. And so I appreciate being the one who's able to like be in the crucible of you of like, I'm feeling some kind of way. And then we come up with an action, a thoughtful action, to then see what shifts from making, we crafted the Facebook post, we crafted the Instagram post, we crafted the emails reaching out to people. And I just, I'm a big fan. That's it. I think I need to shut up, or I'm going to keep saying that. Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you for listening. Go on over to Chelsea the Gonzo on Instagram, or go ahead to Chelsea Gonzalez, ending with a Z, .com, and you can learn all about it. And I think there's a way to see some of your films there too. Isn't there, Chelsea?
Yes. And definitely on my website. I've
Great. Yeah. So do that.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much, Chelsea. And we'll keep following along.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
Thanks.